Malaysia menjadi gelanggang cabaran terbesar. Berdiri teguh bersama wira negara. Ini masa kita. Istaf Sepak Takraw World Cup Kuala Lumpur 2024 secara langsung di Astro Arena dan Astro Go.
Good evening, you're watching AWANI Tonight with me, Farhana Sheikh. Prime Minister Dato' Sri Anwar Ibrahim's second visit to Japan within 6 months signifies the comprehensive and important 68-year relationship between the two nations. To find out more about his visit, we speak to Astro AWANI's correspondent in Japan, Nabila Khalida.
Well, thank you. I'm now at one of the parks in Tokyo, Japan to report to you on Dato' Sri Anwar Ibrahim's first appearance since assuming the role of Prime Minister at the 29th International Conference on the Future of Asia, or better known as the Nikkei Conference, during his 3-day work visit to Japan starting tonight. And Anwar is scheduled to have a keynote speech address on the theme of Asian leadership in an uncertain world on the first session of the first day of the conference, which is tomorrow, Thursday. And this Nikkei Conference is an annual international gathering where political, economic and academic leaders are frankly and freely to offer their opinions on regional issues, what's happening in the world right now, and at the same time to discuss the role of Asia in the world. And at the same time, on the same day, Anwar is scheduled to hold a bilateral meeting with Japan's Prime Minister Fumio Kishida, as well as other top industry players. And through this meeting, we hope we can have or further strengthen the relation between Malaysia and Japan, especially in the sectors of high technology, energy transition, environmental cooperation, defense, security, as well as collaboration in higher education. Anwar has reported arrived at Haneda International Airport at around 8:30 p.m. local time and 7:30 p.m. Malaysia time, accompanied by Foreign Minister Datuk Sri Muhammad Hassan, Investment, Trade and Industry Minister Tengku Datuk Sri Zafrul Abdul Aziz, and Human Resources Minister Stephen Sim Chi Kiong. Well, I guess that's all I can share to you for now today, all the way from Tokyo, Japan. For more updates, I will share more on other social media platforms as well. And back to the studio.
Meanwhile, Malaysian Ambassador to Japan, Dato' Sharil Effendi Abdul Ghani, said this visit will be brief but packed with engagements with policymakers and industry captains, as the Prime Minister needs to be back in Malaysia by the weekend.
Basically, in terms of leaders from Asia, they have all actually went through Nikkei as one of the most important platform for up and coming as well as experienced politicians and so on. So to be able to actually make your first appearance, your debut, to have it as a first speaker, I think is very high in terms of honor that has been accorded to Yang Maha Perdana Menteri. But for Japan, the focus more and more will be on green energy. This is where they're going. This is where Malaysia is also in terms of our focus. So we hope that we are able to actually work on this, not just on the manufacturing side, but also on other aspects. Yes, this is very important for us, renewable energy and so on. We need to make sure that we are actually in terms of the direction clear, that we have the net zero capacity that we want to actually achieve.
Perlis Menteri Besar Muhammad Shukri Ramli's son and his former political secretary will be charged in separate courts tomorrow. According to MECC Chief Commissioner Tan Sri Azam Baki, this is in connection with the submission of false claims for infrastructure projects worth 600,000 ringgit. Azam said the duo will be charged under Section 18 of the MECC Act 2009 at 8 a.m. Muhammad Shukri's son was remanded by MECC on April 24th, together with 5 other suspects, to help in investigations into the false claim case, but was released on bail 2 days later. Shukri was also detained by MACC on April 30th, but was released on bail the same day. He was questioned about the alleged power abuse and spent nearly 8 hours at the MACC headquarters in Putrajaya. Meanwhile, 9 Malaysians were injured while aboard Singapore Airlines flight SQ321 that hit severe turbulence and was forced to abandon its journey from London. Ministry of Foreign Affairs confirmed the matter through the Malaysian Embassy in Thailand.
According to them, there were 16 Malaysians on the flight that landed at the Suvarnabhumi International Airport in Bangkok yesterday. Of the 9 injured, 1 was in critical but stable condition. Wisma added that the embassy has been coordinating with local authorities and hospitals, with consular officers visiting Malaysians who were admitted to several hospitals in Bangkok to provide consular assistance. The ministry also extended its condolences to the passenger who died in the incident. Yesterday, the Singapore Airlines plane hit severe turbulence while en route to Singapore and was forced to make an emergency landing in Bangkok. A 73-year-old British passenger died and 30 others were injured during the incident.
In other news, the Health Ministry will open up the placement of newly graduated medical officers or housemen to other medical facilities besides state hospitals. In a statement, the ministry said the decision was made after an improvement in the percentage of vacancies for housemen.
It said the offer of placement has been implemented from May 13th, involving 792 candidates. Earlier this year, the ministry said placement was only open to state hospitals following a decrease in the number of vacancies for housemen. Up to April, the ministry conducted 2 new placements involving 701 housemen in the first intake and 803 in the second. For new placements in other hospitals would be based on the number of candidates received from the Public Service Department, among other factors. The ministry said it acknowledged the challenges faced by health practitioners nationwide due to the increase in workload, with several measures underway to overcome the issue.
We'll go for a quick break. Stay tuned for more.
Jelajah jua SME Astro AWANI kembali lagi tahun ini.
Bersedia untuk mendapatkan penyelesaian dan transformasi digital untuk semua perniagaan kecil dan sederhana.
Dapatkan info terkini jusme.com.my.
Welcome back. COVID-19 infections in Singapore have doubled, with nearly 26,000 cases from May 5th to 11th. This is a 90% increase compared to the previous week. Professor Dr. Sharifah Izzat Wan Puteh from UKM discusses what this surge could mean for neighbouring Malaysia.
It's not impossible for it to actually just go over the border because we are so close. There's so many Johorians which are working in Singapore that you might just bring the variant or the virus back into Johor. I foresee there's going to be a surge of cases, but it's not going to be very high. One of the reasons is because it is so much under-reporting now. We are not aggressively, doing what we did previously, like tracing and, contacting contacts, but also reverting the results of the test. And most of the time, I think people would either test it or they don't test it, or they might test it, but they don't actually tell the authority or the health authority that, you are positive or things like that. So there might be some sort of increment. I don't think it's going to be very big. I think it's going to be less than 10% or 15%. And most of the cases, I think, still will be, mild and asymptomatic or mild, And hopefully, and this condition is only what we have seen now, meaning that, the variant is not so virulent, it's not so pathogenic. Of course, the high risk would be more at risk. So unless there's going to be changes, which is usually updated by WHO and of course, our National Ministry of Health, if there's no other updates, I still think that it's not going to be, a major wave onto Malaysia. But we still have to be careful,
The KP1 and KP2 strain of the virus, both descendants of the JN1 variant, currently make up more than 2/3 of the cases in Singapore. Dr. Sharifah weighed in on the significance of these variants.
At the moment, they are still considered variants of interest that everybody should be aware of. And the variants keep changing for some reason or the other. And this is something that, the variant tracking must be there. And I think the Ministry of Health is doing a good job on the surveillance, but also tracking. There's going to be other variants coming up. So this is not in particular something which is really, the population should be fearful of.
Ireland, Spain and Norway announced their intention to recognize an independent Palestinian state in the hope that this will help to bring peace with Israel. Irish Prime Minister Simon Harris said on Wednesday that he expected other countries to follow in the coming weeks after talking to world leaders.
Today, Ireland, Norway and Spain are announcing that we recognise the state of Palestine. Each of us will now undertake whatever national steps are necessary to give effect to that decision. In the lead up to today's announcement, I've spoken with a number of other leaders and counterparts, and I'm confident that further countries will join us in taking this important step in the coming weeks. This is an historic and important day for Ireland and for Palestine.
He said a two-state solution was the only credible path to peace and security for Israel, Palestine and their people. Ireland's recognition of Palestine will be formally enacted on May 28th. Meanwhile, Norwegian and Spanish prime ministers have also made their announcements separately. Before the announcement, some 143 out of 193 member states of the United Nations had recognized a Palestinian state. The moves come as Israeli forces have led assaults on the northern and southern edges of the Gaza Strip in May, causing a new exodus of hundreds of thousands of people and sharply restricted the flow of aid, raising the risk of famine.
Meanwhile, Israel ordered an immediate recall of its ambassadors to Ireland and Norway in response to those nations' decision to recognize a Palestinian state. The Foreign Ministry stated that recognizing a Palestinian state undermines Israel's right to self-defense and efforts to secure the return of the 128 hostages being held by Hamas in Gaza. He also warned that a similar action would be taken against Spain. This development comes as Israeli tanks advance to the edge of a crowded district in Rafah during one of the most intense nights of bombardment of the southern Gaza city since Israel launched its offensive this month. Israel has also cut off the main access routes for aid into Gaza, raising international fears of mass casualties and famine in an already severe humanitarian crisis. Meanwhile, Vietnam's Public Security Minister General To Lam has been appointed as the country's president, the third person in the job in less than 18 months. This appointment is the latest reshuffle in Vietnam's top ranks and just months after the general's predecessor stepped down amid an anti-corruption crackdown.
Vietnam's parliament unanimously approved the appointment of 66-year-old To through a secret ballot where he was the sole candidate. General Lam succeeds Vo Van Thuong, who resigned only a year after taking office. He was found to have violated regulations for party members. His predecessor, Nguyen Xuan Phuc, also abruptly quit in January 2023 amid similar circumstances. General Lam was previously in charge of a major anti-corruption campaign that implicated thousands, including high-ranking government officials and business leaders. Vietnam's leadership structure is unique, with power shared among four top positions: President, Prime Minister, Communist Party Secretary General, and Chair of the National Assembly. While the Party Secretary General holds the most power, the presidency, though largely ceremonial, is often seen as a stepping stone to becoming the party leader.
That wraps up AWANI tonight. I'm Farhana Sheikh. Thank you for watching.